The hospital was a towering behemoth of concrete and glass, its windows reflecting the dreary gray skies above. It was a place of hope and healing, where doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to save lives and ease suffering. But there was something sinister lurking within its walls, something that few dared to speak of. It started with rumors of a new experimental drug, a powerful sedative that could put patients into a state of deep sleep. The drug was said to be a breakthrough in the treatment of chronic pain and insomnia, and soon the hospital was inundated with patients eager to try it. At first, everything seemed to be going well. Patients who had been suffering for years were finally finding relief, and the doctors were thrilled with the results. But then, something began to change. Patients who had been put under with the drug began to experience strange and disturbing dreams. They spoke of being trapped in a dark, twisted world, where their deepest fears and anxieties were brought to life. Some even reported seeing strange figures lurking in the shadows, watching them as they slept. As the reports began to pile up, the hospital administration grew increasingly concerned. They launched an investigation into the drug, but all the tests came back inconclusive. The drug seemed to be perfectly safe, with no harmful side effects. But the patients continued to suffer. Many of them were unable to wake up, trapped in a nightmare world of their own making. They begged for release, for someone to help them escape the endless torment. The hospital staff were at a loss. They had never seen anything like this before. Some whispered that the drug was cursed, that it had opened a portal to a dark and malevolent realm. Others thought that the patients were simply experiencing a side effect of the drug, a temporary glitch in their brains that would soon pass. But the nightmares continued, and the patients continued to suffer. It wasn't long before the hospital became known as a place of horror, a place where patients went to sleep and never woke up. One night, a young nurse named Anna was making her rounds on the ward where the sedated patients were kept. She'd always been uneasy about the drug, but she had never witnessed anything out of the ordinary. As she made her way down the dimly lit hallway, she heard a faint whispering sound coming from one of the rooms. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but then she heard it again, louder this time. Curiosity getting the better of her, Anna approached the room, her heart pounding in her chest. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, her eyes widening in horror at what she saw. The patient in the bed was thrashing about, his eyes closed in terror. His skin was slick with sweat, and his breath came in ragged gasps. Anna rushed to his side, trying to calm him down, but he seemed beyond reason. And then suddenly, he went still. His breathing slowed, and his body relaxed. Anna thought he had finally fallen back asleep. But then she noticed something odd. His eyes were still closed, but they were moving rapidly beneath his eyelids, as if he was watching something. Anna leaned in closer, trying to see what he was seeing, and then she saw it too. In the darkness of the room, a figure was looming, its shape indistinct and blurry. It was watching the patient, studying him with an intensity that made Anna's blood run cold. She tried to move, to call for help, but her body wouldn't respond. She was paralyzed, trapped in her own body, forced to watch as the figure grew closer and closer to the patient's bed. And then suddenly, the figure vanished, leaving behind a deafening silence. Anna was released from her paralysis and stumbled backwards, gasping for air. She had no idea what had just happened, but she knew that it was something unspeakable. The next morning, Anna reported what she had seen to the hospital administration, but they dismissed her story as nothing more than a bad dream. They told her that the sedative had no such side effects, and that what she had seen was simply a hallucination. But Anna knew what she had seen. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong with the hospital and the drug they were using. She began to investigate on her own, talking to other staff members and patients, trying to piece together what was really going on. What she discovered was beyond her worst nightmares. The drug was not what it seemed. It had been created by a group of scientists who were trying to open a portal to another dimension, one where they believed they could find the answers to all of life's mysteries. But something had gone terribly wrong. The portal had been opened, but instead of finding answers, they had unleashed something dark and malevolent into the world. It had infected the drug, turning it into a conduit for its own twisted desires. The patients who had been put under with the drug were not dreaming. They were trapped in a nightmare world of their own making, a world that was being controlled by the malevolent force that had been unleashed. Anna knew that she had to act fast. She couldn't let the hospital continue to use the drug, to continue to put patients at risk. She contacted the authorities, but they didn't believe her story. She was on her own, so she decided to take matters into her own hands. She broke into the hospital's drug storage room, determined to destroy the source of the nightmare drug once and for all. But she was caught by the hospital's security team, who had been alerted to her presence. They restrained her, refusing to listen to her pleas for help. As she struggled against them, she felt a cold, dark presence close in around her. The malevolent force had found her, and it was determined to keep her silent. And then, suddenly, everything went black. When Anna woke up, she was lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to a monitor. She had no idea how much time had passed, or what had happened to her. As she tried to sit up, she felt a sharp pain in her arm. Looking down, she saw that she was hooked up to an IV drip. She tried to remove it, but it was too firmly in place. And then she heard it. A faint whispering sound, coming from somewhere in the room. She strained to hear it, her heart pounding in her chest. And then she saw it. A figure, looming in the corner of the room, its shape indistinct and blurry. Anna screamed, but no one came. She was trapped in a nightmare world of her own making, unable to wake up or escape. And the malevolent force that had been unleashed by the drug was still out there, waiting to claim its next victim.